Present Productions presents The Math of ESP, Why It Works Even If You Don't Believe in It. The Occupy ISS _ International Space Station, when survival counts, obviously my revolution has started. It's out there. I'm one man. It will take a heck of a long time for any of this to travel out, hit anything anywhere in the airwaves, and do anything outside of what would literally be considered some kind of miracle. So, obviously I am, using the power of the extrasensory perception, the ability to see, the understanding of the knowledges and the energies and stuff like that. The fact that I've been doing it for close to 60 years now. And I'm kind of having a little bit of fun at the moment because, like I was pointing out, Donald Trump made this big, this is, by the way, this is what I call the sarcasm report, in case I didn't say that. The Donald Trump tweet, the United States is assembling all of its military might of creating a space force type of a thing. I mean, whatever that amounts to in an encounter. I mean, other than taking NASA and maybe some of the black ops stuff that military does, maybe it's Area 51 and down there in Texas. I'll think of the name in a minute, but the various UFO factions and stuff like that, and believers and theorists and stuff like that. And the reason I'm saying that it's amusing to me that I launch Operation ISS or Occupy ISS, I should say, Operation Snowball ISS. Before the term viral was around, you had what was called a snowball effect. You start a little snowball at the top of the mountain, it rolls down, and becomes a big, huge avalanche at the bottom. And that's what a viral is. You start something, and somewhere along the way, it picks up a whole lot of speed and builds up into an avalanche of stuff. But the launching of it, and within 60 days, Trump tweeting that all of the military might is to combine into a space force, for me is very obviously it's a sign that it's an answer to what I'm saying, not in the sense that I'm some big bad ferocious monster or something like that, although that is possible, but simple logistics of realizing that the 0.0001% elite rich didn't even think about this problem. So the elite rich, the 1% elite rich that control about 90% of all the wealth on your planet, they're suddenly very scared because they suddenly realize that by what I have defined here and by what you have here with this toxic soup, you don't have any way to control this. Okay, it's like I say, it's a lottery now. Every day you have 1 million bacteria and 1 million virus in 1 million places in 1 million different toxic soups, taking a random chance of becoming a mutated virus or bacteria that is lethal to a human being. Every day it happens. Every night it happens. So you get 2 rolls of the dice per day. Yeah. 1 million bacteria, 1 million virus, 2 million different pieces. Always possible to do something somewhere, and you have no control of what the toxic soup is because you've never done anything about Fukushima. You have millions of barrels of toxic waste that are leaking. You have Hanford leaking. You have Oyster Island. You have God, I didn't read down the list, so I don't even have the list in front. But you have like 192 nuclear accidents spilling waste into your environment since Chernobyl happened in '89. Yeah, 192 more accidents that are admitted to, and over the past 3 or 4 years, well, in the past 2.5 to 3 years, since I've been here in Mexico, I have noticed there's numerous times now there have been strange radiation clouds detected, especially over Eastern Europe, that nobody knows what is coming from, or what it came from, or why it was in existence of what, okay? So you have all kinds of stuff going on. You know the United States lies up the yang about everything it can, so there's millions of leaks that they're not talking about, millions of things they're hiding. Then you have the coal and oil pollution and the mining pollution and stuff, which Trumpette is given a, that guy's, Trump's a good name for him. He's a trumpeter. He's got his bugle in his mouth and he's blowing as hard as he can and making as much noise for his little rally of disgusting people to go forward. And everybody's doing memes. Oh, that horrible person. And what happens at the end of the day? The meme disappears into the electronic, waste can, and people go forward. Okay. Problem is, what do? What do you go forward to? Oh, well, you go home and go to bed and go to sleep. You don't do anything. So nobody has formulated any kind of revolution against Trump, the corporations, the environmental pollution, the medical catastrophe that you have not seen yet. And you are dealing with stuff like Lane just wiping out Hawaii and doing quite a bit of damage up there. There's apparently, just a freight train of moisture coming along behind it. I'm looking at maps and stuff, and I can see this, long train of moisture. There could be rain for days there yet, at the very least. Florida is in really big trouble, and they're now admitting that there is concern because there is this brown algae, and there is this red tide. Brown tide and red tide. And the brown tide is an algae that's kind of okay, fine, until it starts dying and doing weird stuff. And of course, red tide is something else. And there is reports of this stuff going all the way from the Georgia-Florida border on the Atlantic coastline, all the way around in through Mexico, where I am at. I'm reading about all of the Sargasso grass coming ashore in mass quantities, and they don't know what to do. The tide problems, dead fish washing up, all kinds of things are going on everywhere. And Florida in particular is screaming bloody murder because they are now, literally, something like half of their beaches, the whole southern end of it or something is all in one form of either the algae bloom or the red tide, and they just have animals washing up dead everywhere, and it stinks. Okay, so yeah, there's problems, and they're getting out of hand. Everybody wants to say it's somebody else's problem. It's like I said, it goes back, and all of these religion type things. What do? They tell you that if you pray to them, and it doesn't matter whether it's Hindu or Buddhism or Shinto or any kind of religions, and most assuredly these, okay, if you pray enough, you win the lottery and get to go to heaven. If you give enough money to the church, and it gets to build beautiful things to itself, because that's all the church is. It's a glorification to itself. It is not a glorification of any god, because the gods build all of your natural world, the mountains and the trees and the lakes and the streams. And would you not be more glorifying God or gods or spirits or spiritual realm if you were behaving on a day-to-day basis of respecting your planet that you're on, the fact that there's other people alive on the planet, the fact that there's things going on and all. So That's why I say you got all of this stuff here. Your plastic and microplastics are so extreme that they're finding microplastics in the Arctic ice, okay, which is replenished quite quickly. But it's disappearing quite rapidly up there too. But the sea water itself freezes to become sea ice, and they're looking at that, and they're realizing there's a huge, huge level of plastics in that. All right, well, the plastics are toxic in one way, shape, form, or another. Go look at all the pictures of dead animals with, with plastic straws through their faces and teeth and beaks and hooks and nets of, with whales with no tail because they got cut off from all these things that are plastic objects left floating in the oceans and tossed in the oceans and dumped in the oceans and dumped into riverways and everything else, and you just trash everything. So where is your respect for your gods at all when you do all this trashing of your planet? So you got the chemical and manufacturing and medical wastes that are extremely toxic. You got the coal oil and the mining industry. You got the nuclear industry just literally dumping all kinds of toxins into everything. You have all the burning of the coal and especially the coal, but the coal and also diesel puts out a lot of SO2. And if you go look at the SO2 map, you find it quite amusing that all of Asia is extremely heavily putting out SO2, and they are experiencing hurricane after hurricane, or cyclone after cyclone after cyclone over there, or typhoons and such. Let's see. Sub-Asia, cyclones, Indian Ocean, and Australia, New Zealand, the cyclones. Asia, Micronesia, stuff like that. Those are all the typhoons up there usually, or called typhoons. They're all hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones. They're all the same thing. Okay, but you have all of this, a huge amount of SO2 coming off there. They're getting nailed. Over on the North American continent, you have a huge amount of SO2 being produced by the Midwest to East Coast. They too are experiencing all this strange radical weather. They're having all these problems. You have a lot of this SO2 put out along the west coast, eastern Pacific west coast of North America, from Alaska all the way down to Tierra del Fuego at South America, from volcanoes and vents, fissures, cracks, geysers, undersea vents, things like that. So you have a little bit of it happening along there, and you do see the readings there, and they do use coal burning in Arizona. But think about it. The places that are getting hit with the worst of the weather that is very, very atypical of an SO2 conversion in the atmosphere system. And people are running away, they don't want to talk about it. So the thing that you have to worry about is you are now a society that is so used to being told not to do anything. Not to worry about it. Let Superman come. Let Jesus save you. Let Muhammad save you. Let Silva. There. Wrong name, anyways. But you let somebody else take care of it for you. And you are literally at the point where your government is now totally afraid to let you know what's happening with your whole planet, not just your one country. And every country around is going through massive amounts of damage, and they don't know what to do about it. That's why I saw something about the elitists aren't going to crash the economy anymore. They realize they need some kind of economy somewhere, and when this hits, there won't be any economy anywhere. And everything else is falling apart so fast that they don't know what to do with themselves. So, like I said, this is the sarcasm report. Just Monday morning, the 27th of August here. I'm seeing Lane do stuff. I'm seeing flooding and problems everywhere. USA is getting ready for its first major snowstorm, and Europe's already had some. So yeah.